Hey there, Dango Stu here. Very exciting news today because I finally picked up my Royal Enfield Himalayan. I thought I'd make this video just a little bit of a walk around and some first impressions, just to sort of kick off this series of videos. So far I can say I've been really impressed. I've only had it a day, I've done a little bit over 100 kilometres, and before I bought it I was a little bit concerned because, you know, people jump online, they love to tell people about the problems they've had, they love to sort of complain about quality issues, whatever. And it did have me in two minds. You know, you sit there. I've been running a Suzuki bike lately before I bought this one, and it's been flawless. So you sort of go, am I going to swap a really well-made, flawless bike for something I'm going to have lots of troubles with? And I think the answer is no. Obviously, I can't say I'm not going to have troubles after one day of living with the bike, you know, and running it. But I'm actually really impressed with the quality of the build. People said there were issues, it wasn't great. Maybe it was not so good in the early days. This particular one is sort of getting close to the end of the carburetor models. I believe the next ones brought into Australia are going to be the EFI model. I personally wanted a carburetor model, so I'm really happy to have this one. But I'd say I have maybe dodged some of those early teething problems, which can kind of be expected with a brand new design. I'll get them out of the way up front because there's only really two negatives I've had so far, and neither of them are particularly significant. I'll also say that I work as a mechanic, so I'm pretty comfortable working with this bike. I kind of thought, look, if there's trouble with it, I'll just fix it. That's all there is to it. And I'll certainly be doing videos on every modification I do, every repair I do, so it sort of becomes a resource for you guys if you want to do similar things to your Himalayan. Normally I do another YouTube channel called Dango Marine, which is about boats, so if you're interested in boats, check that out on YouTube as well. But for now, we'll get into the bike. The only simple little thing I'd put into the category of build quality, I would say, is the rack fits really nicely here, and on the other side, you probably can't even see actually on camera. There's just a bit of a gap. It's actually not parallel, it's a bit of an angle. But that's how small I need to go to find anything I thought was not perfect, to be honest. This weld, I'd say, looks a little bit cold, to be honest with you. But I actually am a TIG welder, so I'm kind of happy to repair any weld problems I've got. But the rest of the weld on the actual frame looks fine. The only other sort of minor gripe I've got with me and this bike, and it's nothing to do with build quality, is simply that the tank has these little cutaways where you can kind of put your legs. But even if I sit on the back, my knees just sort of extend a little bit past where they would sort of comfortably go. I almost have to sit a little bit up onto the pillion passenger seat to have my knees sit inside these grooves. So maybe I feel like the bike feels a little bit small because of that. But having said that, a lot of the time you're riding, if you relax your legs rather than sort of gripping the tank as you might if you were doing a lot of sort of tight cornering or whatever. So I don't think that's going to be a real issue in the long run. But I'm 6'2", so maybe I think anyone under 6 foot probably wouldn't have that problem at all, but it's just something I noticed, that's all. I did, however, find the bike really comfortable to jump on and ride. It felt quite natural to me. I really like the ergonomics of it. The bike I've been riding up until now is a little Suzuki TU250X, which I'll show in some other videos because I've done quite a lot of modifications on that. Sadly, I think I'm going to have to sell it because I can't really afford to keep both. I do though want to show all the modifications I did on that bike before I sell it, so I'll do a couple of vids on that before it goes. Other things I noticed in this first 100 Ks, I found the mirrors great. I could really see very clearly. I found that on the Suzuki I got a great view of my shoulders and not much else, but on this bike I found it really good, so that was a really nice sort of refreshing change. I found the instrument cluster great as well. On the Suzuki you've only got a speedo, neutral light and a low fuel warning light. It's really nice on the Himalayan though for me to see a full fuel gauge rather than just a warning light, to see what gear you're in. I found the tacho, I didn't have a tacho before, so that was great. So all that kind of thing, and I felt it quite easy to read. A lot of people said, oh, it's too small, it's hard to read. I need glasses to read now and I had no problem riding the bike, so, you know, I'm really happy with that too. Of those first 100 Ks, I did a bit of that on my own, which felt great. And then after that I went and picked my wife up from work and we went down to the beach to have dinner, and that felt great too. So whether you're on your own or you got a passenger, the bike just felt perfect. You know, I had no issues with the handling, the ride. I also did notice there was a couple of times I'd see a pothole or a lump coming up and I'd instinctively kind of brace for it because I knew what that would normally feel on my other bike, and it was so smooth going over it that I went, oh, that was nothing to worry about. So that was kind of cool too, to realise the suspension really does do a great job of smoothing out the bumps. I really can't wait to sort of get this thing off road and go do a long trip out to the desert or something, go do some camping. I'm really hanging out to do that. Obviously to do some camping I'm going to need some more luggage space, so I've ordered a Givi aluminium top box for this back rack, which is the Outback, or the Trekker Outback I think it's called. I spoke to Donovan today about ordering a set of his custom pannier racks, so I'm going to get those and then use the Royal Enfield long rider saddlebags. I think they're my preferred option at the moment. I'll use the saddlebags for touring, and I'll just have the lockable top box for sort of day-to-day things like carrying your helmet and a few things you might take with you when you park the bike up in a populated area. For spare fuel, I'm going to take this Desert Fox sort of soft bag for petrol. So this has got 5 litres in at the moment. Took 5 litres quite easily. It's got a little Velcro section here with a spout that comes out and attaches onto here. I'm not sure how it'll go compared to having, a normal jerry can, but I kind of liked it, and that's a good enough reason for me. My plan is to put this on top of the top box here. So all up 5 and 15, that'll give me 20 litres of fuel on the bike. I want to check what the plastic's made out of because I want to make sure it's kind of food safe. But my thought is that the original jerry cans I saw that Royal Enfield sell to go on the sides here, I'm thinking I'm going to use those for water. So I think they're 2 litres each, correct me if I'm wrong, but that'll give me 4 litres of water and 20 litres of fuel, which I think is pretty good for most sort of touring. A few other modifications I'll make pretty early. I think I'll just add a USB charger, a phone holder, that kind of thing. I'll probably also upgrade the tubes to a thick 3mm tube, just so I get less punctures on the way, that kind of thing. Those of you that already have a Himalayan will know there's a little sort of lockable section just under the pillion seat, and under here comes some standard tools, which is kind of cool. It's all the basics you need. I got one of these little tool rollers online though, so I'm going to use this for all the tools. So I'll pop these in here and just keep them on the front forks. I think it just makes a bit of extra space on the bike. It also frees up a nice little secret hidey hole that you can put your stash in next time you ride to Goa. It's probably worth talking a little bit about the engine before I wrap this up, but I thought it felt nice. It had plenty of torque. It rode very comfortably in 4th and 5th on the roads we're here, sort of maybe going 90 to 100. Having said that, I am still in that first sort of 500 kilometre break in time, so I'm not really accelerating very hard. I'm not spending a lot of time near the top of the RPM range. I'm not spending a lot of time at high speed. I'm doing a lot of sort of city driving where it's going from standing still up to 60, up to 90 occasionally, up to 80. So I'm hoping to sort of give it that real mixture of high revs, low revs, high speed, low speed, just to make sure that sort of it really goes through all its full range while it's bedding in. Once that's completed, I'll definitely sort of start pushing a bit harder and just see what it's capable of. I did notice a few little things though. It idles about 2000 RPM, which is pretty high. And it does seem that it lugs a little bit low down. Even though it's got a low down torque, it felt to me like it needed to get up to about 3000 RPM before it really sort of got going. And obviously between 3 and 5 is that sweet spot. So you've got about a 2000 RPM range where it is really happy. You could feel it felt smooth, there wasn't much vibration, it didn't feel like it was straining at all. So I felt that was a nice, comfortable, usable band that I'll probably do most of my riding in. A couple of things I'm going to investigate is moving the indicators, because my understanding is when I put the racks and the panniers, they'll be obscured a little bit. I don't want that, so I'm going to look at ways of moving them back. When I put panniers on my last bike, I had to move the indicators there. I actually moved them twice. Once I moved them further back, and eventually I got hard panniers and I actually mounted the indicators on the panniers themselves. They weren't removable ones. So I'll sort of start looking around at some options for doing that as well. And when I do move them, I'll definitely do a vid on how to do that. This is the other thing they said to me in the shop. It's got this really annoying alarm that whatever your side stands down and your ignition's on, the alarm goes off. And I think that's even when it's running. That's just with a little bit of choke to warm it up. What you can see though, is if you want to have it on the side stand, you've got it in neutral, you've started it, it's not going anywhere, the alarm goes constantly. So I'm going to disconnect the switch on the side stand. Obviously you want to be able to start the bike and maybe just let it idle and warm up while you're putting your helmet on or whatever, so it doesn't make a lot of sense to have that racket going on the whole time. I want to try and make videos a little bit searchable too, so if you've got a specific problem you can find them, so I'll try not to do too much in any one video, otherwise it gets a bit confusing what the video is actually about. So really this is just first impressions so far, love it, I was really worried, there's so many naysayers just saying problem here, problem there, and I've had none of it, minor things, but honestly you have minor things with everything you buy. The world's not a perfect place, and I wanted it for its character, not its sort of soulless perfection, but it's more than good enough. I just haven't had anything that I'd consider really worth mentioning. The only other little thing that annoyed me when I first picked it up was the clock was way out, and I was thinking, what time is it? I don't know, I've got to get somewhere, so I'm going to set the clock now, but I'm going to do that in a separate video just so people can Google how do you set the clock on a Himalayan and find it. So I'm going to get on and change that right now, but I'll do it in a separate video so people can search it, you know, how do you change a clock in a Himalayan or whatever. So I'll get on and do that next, but take care and I'll see you next video. Bye.